Hey everyone, this is Jeff Risdon from the Detroit Lions podcast and Lions Wire. And in my earlier solo show this week, I promised that I would have something draft related for you. Well, here it is. We've got a few names here that should be under consideration for early contenders to be the Lions' first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. I've got about 8 to 10 names written down here. Let's go through them. And these are in no real order in terms of likelihood for Lionsness or my personal ranking, although I will let you in on who I like the most. I'm not going to lead with him, though. I want to start with just a basic overview. Are there positions that you can rule out? I don't think they're taking quarterback. I don't think they're taking running back. I don't think they're taking tight end. Everything else, off-ball linebacker is going to be a tough sell. It would have to be an exceptional guy. I don't see an exceptional guy in this class. We'll see. They surprised us with Jack Campbell back in the day. We'll see. I think they think they're better there than what some fans think they do. We'll see. But so I'm not hitting those positions. Primarily focusing on the trenches here. I do have a cornerback and I do have a wide receiver or two on the list as well. But let's go through them. Start off with one of the guys that when I watched him, and I've watched him play a few times, was like, oh crap, this guy sure looks like what the Lions like at edge, and that's Landon Jackson from Arkansas. He's big. He's 6'7", 270-ish. Just, plays power to speed, can do a little bit of speed to power, but this is a guy who is an edge setter who fits the Marcus Davenport crush the can type of pass rusher on the outside that the Lions really seem to favor in Eric Glenn's defense. Now, I'll throw this in. If AG and or Ben Johnson leaves, there could be scheme changes. There could be, what they're looking for is different. But I'm going right now on the premise of building this current team in the same model. And Landon Jackson certainly fits that. He is a guy who's got a lot of experience playing. He can go over either shoulder of an offensive tackle. Like I said, he sets the edge pretty nicely against the run. I have some concerns about his twitch. He's not the twitchiest athlete. He's not the most live guy in space. He's not a guy who's going to bend the corner all that well. But that's not something that the Lions have shown that they really want all that much from a base end. And he's got some ability there. So he's certainly one to know. Next on the list is a guy. And I had this in too. There's going to be some guys that I don't list, and that's because I think they're going to be gone. James Pierce from Tennessee is one of those guys. Nick Scarton from Texas A&M is another one of those guys. But his teammate, Shamar Stewart, is my personal favorite right at the moment. And again, this is November. It's not Thanksgiving yet, so it's really early on the draft stuff. I get that. But guys who fit what the Lions look for, Shamar Stewart is absolutely that guy. He's 6'6", I want to say, 290 pounds. He bulked up a little bit this year. And this is a guy who's a former 5-star recruit who didn't really play all that well until this year, and he has added some weight, and he's played more on the outside, which is a weird combination, I get, and has blossomed. This is the guy that the Lions wanted Levi Onwuzurike to become, and Levi has played very well throughout all of his injuries, has emerged as a very quality, versatile defensive front guy. We'll see if they bring him back, but even if they do, there's room for another guy like that. And Stewart is higher end. He has really played very well this year. Can play down, reduce down inside, play your B gap, but he's really good in a four-man front playing as again, a crush the can type of edge who's got explosive power and interesting speed. He's still learning how to play the run. He don't always have the best eyes yet, but this is a guy, arrow pointing way up. This is a guy who entered the season not on a lot of people's top 100s. And now you're going to see him in a lot of mock drafts in the 25 to 35 overall range, and that's where the Lions are going to make their first pick. By the way, you will notice I'm going to say first round. I said first pick. Got to leave open the possibility for a trade. When you're picking 29 to 32, which is where I expect the Lions to be picking, hopefully 32, fingers crossed. Looking good for that right now anyways. There's always the chance for a trade, and Brad Holmes has shown that he will trade. That's one of the things we like about Brad Holmes is that he's not wedded to a position or a draft slot. So could be Stewart could be number 29. He could be number 37. I do kind of think that the Lions will pick somewhere in that range, regardless of where they wind up getting slotted. But, that's neither here nor there. Again, it's really early. Just throwing out ideas of players that if you're watching college football and you're starting to get an itch for like, who could the Lions be drafting? Usually by this time in the year, I'm knee deep in mock drafts and prospects and wondering who the Lions are going to get. Well, it's hard to break those habits for a lot of fans. I can get that. So for you, putting on the draft wire hat today and cross-pollinating with the Lions wire. Landon Jackson, Shamar Stewart, a couple of SEC power ends. Then we'll go to the next one. I'll give you another one. LT Overton from Alabama. Another big guy, 285, 290 pound range. We're going to see where he winds up measuring and testing. But he's a guy who plays on the edge. He can primarily play inside, though. And again, another Levi Onwuzurike, John Kaminsky type of player, big, powerful, physical, has shown me some things that I'm not sure that I thought he could do. He was the guy that I wasn't all super high on. I've watched their last couple of games. I'm like, there's something there. Goes to Alabama. We know Brad Holmes loves Alabama guys. Can't rule that out. So he's another guy to know. LT Overton, big guy, another guy like Stewart, where the arrow is pointing up. I might not see him in many mock drafts at the moment, but when has that stopped Brad Holmes before? We love him for that. And by the way, that's good. And I'll just say this as a draft analyst, as somebody this will be my 22nd year professionally covering the NFL draft. I love it when teams are unpredictable and throw in variables and take really good football players instead of being wedded to, oh my God, we so desperately need an offensive tackle. I'm just using this hypothetically. I've got to draft an offensive tackle no matter what. Or, if you're in the top 10 and you're like, oh, we got to get our quarterback. Well, none of these quarterbacks are good, but I got to take one anyways. That's how you wind up with Daniel Jones, folks. I don't think Brad Holmes is doing that. Thank God. Daniel Jones, by the way, the number 4 quarterback on the New York Giants right now as the number 5 overall pick in a recent draft. That's how you stay bad. We don't want that. So I love it when Brad Holmes does these things. Take really good football players that fit your team and fit your culture. We don't have that problem in Detroit. We know that. We used to have that problem in Detroit. That's beyond that. Thank God. Let's stick with the edge. Got one more for you. Ashton Gilotte. Tough name to spell and say. He's from Louisville. Big guy. One of my personal favorites in this draft. I like him probably more than most draft analysts do. So this is one of those there's every year there's like 2 or 3 schools that I just wind up seeing every one of their games. Louisville is one of those schools this year. I have seen every single Louisville game, and I have really come away impressed with Ashton Gilotte. He is a He lacks length on the outside, kind of like Josh Paschal, in that he's around that size, the 6'3", 270-ish role. But he can play inside. He's got some very interesting feet, and I love his motor. I love his ability to finish. He's very good on stunts, twists, gimmicks, whatever you want to call them. He's got some refined pass rush moves on the outside. Doesn't have a tremendous amount of production, but this is a good football player, and he fits the role that the Lions need. This is probably higher than he will wind up being drafted. We'll see. I don't know. He strikes me as kind of a prospect that's. Remember Ennis Rakestraw at this time last year. Well, actually, at this time last year, he was not getting first round buzz, and that's like around Christmas time. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, Ennis Rakestraw is going first round. Like everybody, draft media all followed and went on that, and he wound up going to the Lions in the 50s. And I have a feeling that the Gilotte might ride that same sort of roller coaster where, like, right now he's seen as a guy that's generally projected in the 35 to 55 range, and you're going to see him perk up into some mock drafts because he probably will test pretty well. And people are going to be like, oh, Louisville, yeah, their defense wasn't very well coached. That's true. And he'll get some love, and then he'll settle back in. And I think this is higher end. I think he's a guy that, especially if the Lions trade back a little bit, he's much more in contention than he would be if they're picking. God forbid they lose in the NFC divisional round, but that put those negative thoughts away. No. But he's a player I like, and I like him more than a lot of draft analysts do, at least at this point. So he's a name to know. Let's get to the bigger guys. Defensive tackle. Like a couple of Ohio State guys on this list. I do have a Michigan guy too. So let's sandwich, because one of them plays offensive line as well. Let's sandwich the Michigan guy. It's not Mason Graham. He's going to be long gone. He's a top 15 pick. Could be a top 10 pick, and is a worthy one. We'll start with Tyleik Williams. Guy who, for Ohio State, interior line. Look, is this a massive need on the team? Hopefully not, but you can never have too many of these guys. And with the injury attrition wars that we've had, this is a player who I like a lot. He is a penetrating B gap, 3-tech, 4-eye, whatever you want to align him in. Really active player on the inside. Great hands, violent hands, knows how to finish, knows how to work in conjunction with a guy like Ashton Gilotte, who can, loop in. Really, really good football player. And look, I know there's people that are like, he plays for Ohio State. Like, yeah, Taylor Decker did too. Pretty damn good football player. You're going to have to get over that. I say this a lot, and I sincerely mean it. You cannot scout the helmet, and you can't root against a guy just because of where he played in college. Look, I might have done that with Ben Roethlisberger as an Ohio Bobcat rooting against Miami. I won't even say their team name because I don't like it. But Duke can play. He proved it. You got to get over that, folks. You just, if you're a Spartan fan, you got to accept the fact that there's good players that go to Michigan. If you're a Michigan fan, you got to accept that there's good players that go to Ohio State and Michigan State and Notre Dame. Like, and end of round. Let's get to the Michigan player, Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant is a massive guy, and I've seen them live twice. I was at the USC and Oregon games, and he's functional beef, man. The thing that I love about him, he gets his hands up in the passing lanes so innately well. That's a skill. Not necessarily the best pass rusher on the inside, but look, I think he can play very well next to Aleem McNeil and help facilitate things for 54. Much in the way that Grant does for Mason Graham at Michigan. That's not saying that Graham is not a great pass rusher in his own right. I think Grant does a lot of the little things inside that help all the players around him get better. And that is something that's very Lion culture. I don't know if he's going to, honestly, I don't have a great feel for what the NFL is going to think of him, Kenneth Grant. I could see the NFL liking him in the 20s, but I could also see him, falling a ways into the 40s. But if there's a middle ground, the Lions are in that middle ground, and they should be interested in a player like him. Let's get to the other Ohio State player. We're going to go to the other side of the ball. Easy for me to say. I actually have two Buckeye offensive linemen here, so I'll just throw them together. Josh Simmons, left tackle. The Lions need tackles. I'm not going to say that. Well, this is complicated because they drafted Giovanni Manu with their third-round pick in 2025 already. And we don't know what his developmental arc is going to look like. There's certainly optimism with his athleticism and his build. You understand why they drafted him. And have it on pretty good authority that he wasn't going to last to their next pick. They needed a trade to get him. But where's he at? I don't know. It doesn't feel like the Colby Sorsdal project is working all that well. He had one really good week at camp, and then, not so good. I don't approve of the way that they moved him from college tackle in guard last year. It didn't work. So they moved him back to tackles, but there's just been a lot on his plate. But I do think if there's room, you can never have too many offensive tackles. There's room for it. Simmons is currently hurt. He's probably a top 20 talent. Got an injury history. Who takes those guys? Takes those guys. He loves those guys. Good player too. Fits the gap duo scheme very well. Not necessarily a zone guy. The Lions have run a little bit more zone blocking this year. Simmons can do that, but I like him. I like him more in the power pig role opposite. And he's a natural left tackle. And with Panay being the best right tackle in the game, again, there are debates that will be had endlessly about Taylor Decker's succession plan. And by the way, we're not pushing Taylor Decker out. If he wants to keep playing, please do. I think we saw how good he is by his absence in a recent game. Please get healthy. Please stay there, Taylor. Not trying to push Taylor Decker out the door at all, because he's still a very good left tackle. He's one of the 10 best left tackles in football. I would absolutely put my name on that. But you got to have some depth. And a guy who can also play inside makes a lot of sense. And they do need guards. Again, Sorsdal didn't work at guard. Coyote Alshika, I think we've seen what he is. He's a functional backup. Pretty good functional backup. Beyond that, who knows? Again, with where Manu winds up, he could be inside, he could be outside. This summer he played tackle, not particularly well. The potential's there, but there's room for more offensive line. I think we can all agree on that. And that's where Donovan Jackson comes in. And if they take an offensive lineman, I want Donovan Jackson. Guard, Ohio State. Now he's playing tackle now because Simmons is hurt. And the first week was kind of rough. Ohio State's the other team that I just happen to watch every one of their games because they're always on TV. They're a really good team. And one of the reasons they're really good is because they have a devotion to building their lines up. That's something that Ryan Day has recruited very well. It's similar to the way that Michigan, when they won their national title, their lines were incredible. And a lot of those guys wound up in the NFL. Take good players from good teams with familiar schemes. That's Donovan Jackson. Might be the best duo guard in the league in this draft class. Really impressive. He moves well for his size. He is a very good Jonah Jackson replacement a year later. Nothing against Kevin Zeitler, who's been fantastic. As right guard, he's one of the 5 best right guards in football right now. He could be next year too, but he's 30 age-ish. I told him it was an agent for him. I know he's old. I know he's been around a long time. He's on a 1-year contract. You can't guarantee that he's going to come back. By the way, for those of you who are not familiar with how I handle rosters, when I look at a roster right now and I see that somebody's going to be a free agent, I assume they will not be back. That's my mindset. That's how I approach it. So right now, the Lions have a massive hole at right guard. Maybe Christian Mahogany can fill it. I'd be great. I loved him in the last draft. He was a top 50 player for me. They got him in the 6th round. Haven't seen what he can do yet. I'm very, very optimistic at Christian Mahogany, but we'll see. We'll see where that winds up. His presence on the roster should not preclude the Lions from also addressing that position, is the way I will state it. I wanted to get one or two others, and these are wide receivers. People are going to laugh at me when I say the first name here because they think he's going to be long gone, and that's Tet McMillan from Arizona. I'll just say I don't think he's going to test well, and there's a growing, and I'm not sure, honestly, I'm not sure he fits the Lions offense in the way that I think a lot of people expect to. He's kind of Tim Patrick. Now, Tim Patrick is certainly welcome to come back. He's been very good, blocks well, and I think that's something that he can hang his hat on. But this is a guy who's hurt all the time. It would be nice to get in somebody like that. Look, I see Ted McMillan. I saw him in a mock draft this week, number 2 overall. I have a very hard time fathoming that he's going to go that high. He is more in the Drake London type of receiver, where he's probably a number 2 in the NFL, playing off of a really good number 1. Lions have a really good number 1 in Amon-Ra St. Brown. They happen to have the vertical field stretcher and Jameson Williams. A guy like Tat McMillan, if he falls into the 20-ish range, you can see the Lions maybe trade up in the manner that they did to get Terrion Arnold, who was a guy who I thought was a top 15 prospect, started to fall a little bit, like, oh, let's go get him. I can see that happening with Tat McMillan, who's very impressive receiver. But again, not super twitchy, and he's in that sort of in-between size, and he's not going to run all that well. I think he's a 4.55 guy. We'll see. It's a name to consider. And look, I know we covered that. The other guy that I'm looking at is Alec Ayomanor from Stanford. I like him. I don't know if he's going to come out. He's got eligibility left. He's got transfer ability. I'll say this. Dude, if you stay in college, don't stay at Stanford, please. That is a terrible offense. And he is their offense. He has, I want to say he's got 70% of their wide receiver catches, if not more this year. Look, he's a big guy. He gets open well. He's very good at contested catches, which is where I see you think, Jeremy doesn't throw contested catches. Ben Johnson doesn't scheme contested catches. Well, Ben Johnson might not. Hey, this guy has talent. He's a player that I like more than most people do. But again, we'll see if he winds up coming out. But that's another name to know. You know what? Enjoy some college football. It's coming up. As I record this on Friday morning, I'm looking forward to. Look, I already got my action this week. Heating up. My Ohio Bobcats beat Toledo. No real Bobcat prospects, unfortunately. It's really not in the first round, anyways. If you are in the action, though, Harold Fannin Jr., tight end, Bowling Green. Look, the Lions don't need a tight end. He's very redundant with what Sam Laporta does, but dude could freaking play. I love him a lot. I hope that he winds up in the top 50 where he belongs. Again, he's not Lions related. For draft content, please check out my stuff at DraftWire. Kurt Popejoy, who is a Steelers guy, and I run it. We have a lot of stuff coming. We have just shifted really into okay, it's time to start ranking these people. It's time to start evaluating more and more players. Most of my free time when I'm not doing Lions stuff is spent watching draft prospects and writing reports and grading and so forth. So, look, I know Lions fans are not with the draft right now. That's good. It's a happy change, but if you get the itch, we can scratch it for you. With that, you know what, guys, enjoy your weekend. Let's enjoy the Lions going to Indianapolis. The Colts, by the way, are wearing uniforms that are eerily similar. They call them their Indy Knights. It might look familiar to the Lions' new black uniforms at home. They're pretty cool. Looks like we'll be in the all whites. Let's sweep this AFC South, which I think is the worst division in football. Let's go get it. Make it happen. Be loud and proud if you're going down to Indy. It's a great road trip. Talked about that earlier. I talked about it on the Huge Show this week. By the way, thanks, Bill, for having me in again. Wonderful relationship that we're getting with the Huge Show and the cross-pollination. I can't thank you guys enough for listening. So with that, have a good weekend and go Lions.